Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with your mind racing, replaying conversations from years ago, or worrying about things that haven't even happened yet? Maybe you've felt that tightness in your chest when you think about someone who hurt you, or that nagging voice in your head that whispers you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready enough. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know something important. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. What if I told you that most of the weight you're carrying, the stress that keeps you up at night, the anxiety that follows you through your day, isn't actually coming from your circumstances? What if the real burden is something you've been holding onto by choice, without even realizing it? I know that might sound strange. How could we choose to suffer? But here's what I've learned, and what I want to share with you today. Peace isn't something we find by adding more to our lives. It's something we uncover by releasing what no longer serves us. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you truly felt light? Not just happy for a few minutes, but genuinely unburdened, like you could breathe all the way down to your toes? For most of us, it's been a while. And that's because we've become expert collectors of emotional baggage, masters at holding grudges, champions of overthinking, and specialists in carrying guilt that doesn't even belong to us. Today, we're going to explore something that might just change your life. We're going to talk about letting go. Not in some abstract, mystical way, but in a real, practical, life-changing way. Because the truth is, learning to let go isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world convinced you that you needed to hold on to everything so tightly. So let's start with something that affects almost all of us, that constant mental chatter that never seems to stop. You know what I'm talking about. It's that voice in your head that replays yesterday's embarrassing moment over and over, or rehearses tomorrow's difficult conversation 100 different ways. Some people call it overthinking, but I think it's more than that. It's like having a browser with 50 tabs open in your mind, all running at the same time, draining your energy, slowing down your processing speed, and preventing you from being fully present in your actual life. Here's what's interesting about overthinking. We often believe we're doing something productive when we analyze situations to death. We tell ourselves that if we just think about it enough, we'll figure it out, we'll be prepared, we'll avoid mistakes. But what's really happening? We're creating problems that don't exist. We're manufacturing worst-case scenarios. We're building entire storylines in our minds about what people think, what might happen, what could go wrong. And here's the kicker, most of it never comes true. Let me ask you something. How many times have you worried yourself sick about a situation, lost sleep over it, stressed about it for days or weeks, only to discover that it either never happened or turned out completely different than you imagined? If you're honest, it's probably most of the time, right? So why do we keep doing this to ourselves? The answer lies in how our brains are wired. Our minds evolved in an environment where threats were real and immediate. A rustling in the bushes could mean a predator. Being excluded from the tribe could mean death. So our brains developed this incredible ability to scan for danger, to prepare for threats, to remember negative experiences so we could avoid them in the future. This is called the negativity bias, and it kept our ancestors alive. But here's the problem, we're not running from predators anymore. Most of our threats today are social, emotional, or completely imagined. The danger is an awkward text message, a difficult conversation with our boss, or wondering what someone thinks about us. But our brain responds the same way it would to a physical threat. It goes into overdrive, creating loops of worry and analysis that feel productive but actually trap us in a cycle of mental exhaustion. So what do we do about it? How do we break free from this exhausting mental hamster wheel? The first step is simply noticing. Right now, I want you to take a deep breath. Go ahead, breathe in slowly, hold it for just a moment, and then release it completely. Did you notice how, for just that second, your mind quieted down? That's the power of awareness. When you catch yourself spiraling, when you notice that your mind is churning through the same thoughts for the 20th time, that awareness itself creates a tiny bit of space. You're no longer completely lost in the thoughts. You're observing them. And here's the beautiful thing, you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. There's a difference between I am anxious and I notice I'm feeling anxious. One makes anxiety your identity. The other makes it a passing weather pattern in your inner landscape. Can you feel that difference? When you start to see your thoughts as separate from who you are, they lose some of their power over you. But awareness alone isn't always enough, especially when those thoughts are particularly harsh. Which brings us to something even more insidious than general overthinking, the specific, targeted, relentless criticism we direct at ourselves. That inner voice that's supposed to motivate us but instead tears us down. The one that says you're not good enough, you're falling behind, you should be doing more, being more, achieving more. Have you ever stopped to listen, really listen, to how you talk to yourself throughout the day? Most of us have a running commentary in our heads, and if we're honest, it's not exactly kind. We say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to a friend. We hold ourselves to impossible standards. We fixate on our mistakes and discount our successes. We catastrophize our failures and minimize our wins. Imagine for a moment that your inner voice was actually a person standing next to you all day, whispering these things in your ear. You sounded so stupid in that meeting. Everyone was judging you. You're never going to succeed. You're not smart enough. You're not attractive enough. You're going to mess this up just like you mess everything up. Would you keep that person in your life? Would you let them follow you around? Of course not. So why do we accept it from ourselves? The quality of your inner dialogue shapes the quality of your entire life. If you constantly tell yourself you're failing, your brain starts to believe it. That belief affects your confidence, which affects your actions, which affects your results, which then confirms the original belief. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the beautiful thing, it works both ways. When you shift your inner dialogue, when you start speaking to yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a good friend, everything begins to change. Now, I'm not talking about toxic positivity or pretending everything's perfect when it's not. I'm talking about replacing harsh judgment with curious compassion. Instead of "why am I so stupid," try "what can I learn from this?" Instead of "I always mess everything up," try "this didn't go as planned, but I'm learning and growing." Do you see the difference? One closes doors. The other opens them. There's a simple technique that can help with this, and it might sound a little strange at first, but stay with me. Try giving your inner critic a name. Call it Doubtful Dave or Anxious Annie or whatever feels right to you. Why does this help? Because it creates separation. When you hear that harsh voice saying you're going to fail, instead of accepting it as truth, you can say, "Oh, there's Dave again." It sounds silly, but it works. It reminds you that these thoughts aren't facts. They're just old patterns, old programming, old fears trying to keep you small and safe. But sometimes, the weight we carry isn't just about thoughts and self-talk. Sometimes it's about actual pain, real wounds, deep hurts that we've been carrying for years, maybe even decades. These emotional burdens shape how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, how we move through the world. And until we're willing to look at them, to really examine what we're carrying and why, we'll keep hauling them around like invisible anchors, wondering why we can't seem to move forward. Think about your own life for a moment. Is there a relationship from your past that still stings when you think about it? A betrayal that still makes your stomach tighten? A loss that still feels fresh even though it happened years ago? Maybe it's a parent who couldn't give you what you needed. A friend who turned their back on you. A partner who broke your trust. These experiences leave marks. They teach us lessons, sure, but sometimes the lessons we learn are the wrong ones. Instead of learning that person wasn't right for me, we learn I'm not worthy of love. Instead of learning that situation was toxic, we learn I can't trust anyone. These old wounds don't just sit quietly in the background. They show up in unexpected ways. You find yourself overreacting to small things that remind you of past pain. You hold back in new relationships because you're afraid of being hurt again. You carry tension in your body that you can't explain. You have trouble sleeping because your mind won't let the past rest. Here's a question worth sitting with. What pain are you still carrying that doesn't belong in your present? Whose voice still lives in your head, telling you who you are and what you're worth? What moment from your past still has the power to make you feel small, ashamed, or broken? I know these aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. Because here's the truth, unresolved emotions don't just disappear. They don't fade away on their own. They sit inside us, taking up space, consuming energy, influencing our present even when we're not aware of it. That's why people sometimes say they feel stuck. They're trying to move forward while simultaneously dragging the entire weight of their past behind them. Letting go of emotional baggage doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means choosing to release the grip that past pain has on your present life. It means acknowledging the wound, understanding what it taught you, and then deciding that you're no longer going to let it define you. Think of it this way, emotions are messengers. They come to deliver information. Grief tells you what mattered. Anger shows you where your boundaries were crossed. Shame reveals where healing is needed. But once the message is received, once you've learned what you need to learn, you don't need to keep the messenger around forever. You can thank it for the lesson and let it go. This is easier said than done, I know. Especially when it comes to people. Sometimes the hardest part of letting go isn't releasing what happened, it's releasing who it happened with. Because people aren't just isolated events in our lives. They're woven into our identities, our daily routines, our sense of belonging. Letting go of someone can feel like losing a piece of yourself. But here's what I've learned, and what I hope you'll come to understand: not everyone is meant to go with you through every chapter of your life. Some people are there for a season, to teach you something specific, to help you grow in a particular way. And when that season ends, holding on doesn't serve either of you. It just creates resentment, disappointment, and that awful feeling of forcing something that no longer fits. How do you know when it's time to let someone go? Usually, your body knows before your mind does. You feel drained after spending time with them. You're constantly walking on eggshells. You're always the one reaching out, making an effort, trying to keep things alive. You've communicated your needs, but nothing changes. And deep down, if you're really honest with yourself, you know that if you met this person today, you probably wouldn't choose to have them in your life. That last one is powerful, isn't it? If you met them today, would you actively pursue this friendship, this relationship, this connection? Or would you politely keep your distance? Sometimes we stay connected to people purely because of history, because of time invested, because walking away feels like admitting failure or giving up. But staying in relationships that drain you isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. And letting go doesn't require drama. It doesn't require a big confrontation or a final statement. Sometimes it's as simple as stopping the chase. Letting the silence speak. Wishing them well from a distance. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can honor what you once shared while acknowledging that it's run its course. That's not cruel. That's honest. And honestly, it's one of the most mature things you can do. What about the flip side though? What about when you're the one who caused the pain? When you're carrying guilt about your own actions, your own choices, your own mistakes? This might be even heavier than the hurt others caused you, because you can't distance yourself from it. You can't walk away from yourself. Guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. Most of us don't make that distinction. We collapse the action into our identity. We make one mistake and decide we're a mistake. We hurt someone and decide we're hurtful. We fail at something and decide we're a failure. But here's what you need to understand: you are not the worst thing you've ever done. You're not defined by your mistakes. You're defined by what you do after you make them. Are you still punishing yourself for something that happened years ago? Are you replaying that moment over and over, wishing you could go back and do it differently? Here's the hard truth: you can't change the past. No amount of guilt will undo what happened. But what you can do is learn from it, make amends if possible, and forgive yourself so you can move forward. Self-forgiveness isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from a prison you were never meant to stay in. It's about recognizing that you did the best you could with the awareness, resources, and emotional capacity you had at that moment. Would you do things differently now? Probably. But that's because you've grown. You've learned. You're not the same person you were then. So here's what I want you to consider. What if the guilt you're carrying isn't even proportional to what you actually did? What if some of it was projected onto you by others? What if you've taken responsibility for things that weren't actually your fault? Sometimes we carry guilt that doesn't belong to us. We absorb other people's emotions. We make ourselves responsible for their happiness, their choices, their reactions. And that's not fair to us. Ask yourself this: did I truly do something wrong, or was I made to feel responsible for someone else's emotions? Did I violate my own values, or did I simply fail to meet someone else's unrealistic expectations? These distinctions matter. Because you can't heal if you're trying to fix something that was never actually broken. Now, all of this, the overthinking, the harsh self-talk, the emotional baggage, the guilt, it all ties into something even bigger: our desperate need to control outcomes. We want guarantees. We want certainty. We want to know that if we just plan enough, prepare enough, think enough, we can prevent pain and ensure success. But life doesn't work that way. Control is an illusion. You can control your actions, your responses, your effort. But you cannot control outcomes. You cannot control other people. You cannot control the future. And the more you try, the more frustrated, anxious, and exhausted you become. Because you're fighting against reality itself. Think about how much energy you spend trying to control things that are fundamentally outside your control. You try to control how someone else feels about you. You try to control whether you'll get that job, pass that test, succeed in that venture. You try to control the timing of everything in your life, getting frustrated when things don't happen on your schedule. But what if, instead of trying to control the river, you learn to move with it? What if you focused your energy on the things you actually can influence and released your grip on everything else? This isn't about being passive or giving up. It's about being strategic with your energy. It's about understanding the difference between influence and control. You can influence your health by making good choices, but you can't control whether you'll get sick. You can influence your relationships by showing up authentically, but you can't control whether someone chooses to stay. You can influence your career by working hard and developing skills, but you can't control whether you'll get that specific opportunity. Do you see the difference? When you let go of the need to control everything, something amazing happens. You stop resisting what is. You stop fighting against the natural flow of life. You become more adaptable, more resilient, more open to possibilities you never imagined. Because sometimes, the detours lead to better destinations than your original plan ever could have. And here's the thing about letting go: whether it's letting go of overthinking, or toxic self-talk, or emotional wounds, or the need for control, it's not a one-time event. It's a practice. It's something you'll need to do again and again, maybe even daily. Because the mind has a way of re-gripping what we've released. Old patterns have a way of creeping back in. And that's okay. That's normal. That's human. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is catching yourself a little sooner each time you start spiraling. It's treating yourself with a little more compassion each day. It's releasing old hurts a little more quickly. It's surrendering to the flow of life a little more easily. What would your life look like if you weren't carrying all this weight? What would be possible if your mind was clearer, your heart was lighter, your energy was freed up for things that actually matter? What would change if you truly believed that you are enough, right now, exactly as you are, with all your imperfections and flaws and mistakes? I'll tell you what would change: everything. When you let go of what's weighing you down, you create space for what lights you up. When you release the past, you make room for the present. When you stop trying to control the future, you can actually enjoy the journey. When you silence the inner critic, you can finally hear your inner wisdom. This is the art of letting go. Not about becoming someone new, but about rediscovering who you've always been underneath all the layers of pain, fear, and conditioning. It's about choosing peace over chaos, presence over worry, growth over stagnation. It's about understanding that you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next right step. And that next right step might be as simple as taking a deep breath right now and releasing it slowly. It might be noticing a harsh thought and choosing not to believe it. It might be forgiving yourself for something you've been holding onto for years. It might be finally letting go of that relationship that's been draining you. It might be trusting that you don't need to control every outcome. Whatever it is for you, I want you to know that you have the strength to do it. You've survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You've made it through your worst days. You've grown through challenges you once thought would break you. And you'll continue to do so. But you don't have to keep carrying all this weight. You're allowed to set it down. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to let go. Because on the other side of letting go is an emptiness. It's freedom. It's lightness. It's peace. It's the life you've been too burdened to fully live. So take a breath. Look at what you're holding. And ask yourself, does this still serve me? Does carrying this make my life better or just heavier? And if the answer is heavier, if the answer is that you're holding on to things out of habit or fear or guilt, then give yourself permission to release them. You deserve to walk through life unburdened. You deserve to wake up without yesterday's weight on your shoulders. You deserve to breathe fully, love freely, and live authentically. And it all starts with this simple, powerful choice, to let go. Your life is waiting for you, lighter and freer than you can imagine. All you have to do is release your grip and step forward. The art of letting go isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding yourself. So let go, and watch what unfolds.